Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the Red Raiders Brooklyn bound. We discuss what all that entails, including self-Red Raider reflection regarding what we want to see on Friday.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On at Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, we are back at it for a game day edition of Locked On Texas Tech as Grant McCasland and the Red Raiders leave the LBK for the first time this season. Neutral site, multi-team event in Brooklyn, New York, and it begins for the Red Raiders with St. Joseph's out of the gates. Got a shot at UT or Syracuse on the other side, but either way, have a chance to make an impact on your resume for better or worse, as now you get to some basketball that will resemble something a little bit more close to maybe what you can anticipate in the Big 12 Conference. Not so sure, though, as you kick things off here with St. Joseph's, what you make of them and the impact on the resume. We were talking the other night prior to the Arkansas Pine Bluff game about those types of matchups where you kind of are punished by the computers or the rankings or whatever just by stepping onto the floor. So I want to get your thoughts on St. Joseph's and a couple of other things as it pertains to the week. But first, let's take a listen to Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland talking about Thursday's matchup.
I've really looked forward to this game, honestly, and I have a ton of respect for St. Joe's, and I think they returned two of the best players in college basketball, honestly, and they've got guard play and size at the rim. They play the game aggressively. I watched the game live when they played Villanova and won up in the office in preparation for other games, and just the opportunity to play at such a great venue and man, this is a one-game season, and don't get it confused. This is what I challenged our team with. This could end up being the best non-conference win for us. So I do think they got that much upside and that much experience, and they've got a great team.
This is going to be the second time ever that you've played these guys. The first time was when Bob Knight was coaching you. You lost to them in the second round of the tournament up in Buffalo, New York, I believe it was. And Phil Martelli, great coach, and I think Jameer Nelson was on that team for St. Joe's. Anyway, they were one of the one seeds in the NCAA tournament that year. But not a lot of familiarity with these two programs, obviously. But they are. So you ask like what kind of impact on your resume they could have. This is going to change. So all we can go off of is like what it looks like right now. The wheels could fall off either one of these two teams, and your league could be not as good, or their league could be not as good. Who knows? Right now, this would be considered a quad 2 game. So somebody's going to get a quad 2 win tonight. You are, and I guess maybe it would be a quad 1 win for them. It would be a quad 2 win for you based on how they're currently ranked. They're like 92 in the net. So anytime you get a win on a neutral floor with somebody between 50 and 100, that's a quad 2 win. Now, it's got to stay that way, and it doesn't mean that they'll stay in that range from a net ranking standpoint. But these guys won 21 games last year. They went to the NIT. They've got and who Grant is talking about. He's talking about Eric Reynolds and Xavier Brown. They're two guards. One's a senior. One's a sophomore. They are going to be their two leading scorers. They average combined about 30, 31 a game between the two of them. So that'll be kind of where it gets interesting tonight as you look at how your guards handle their guards. And neither one of these guys shoot it very well though. From three is what I mean. They're both about 25% 3-point shooters. So if either one of them starts pouring them in, like makes 3 or 4 or 5 of them, that's very much not what they have done to this point this year. And so keep an eye on that. And sometimes at these neutral sites, man, I remember, what was it, Tech and I'm going to say like Tech in Tennessee a few years ago. and it was at the Garden, and it set the game of basketball back. I felt like many years, because you just, I mean, so sometimes when you get to these neutral floors, it's, and I don't know what the crowd will be like. Obviously, St. Joe's is on the East Coast, and I think in Philly, and so I don't know, is there a ton of crowd that will make the trip, from Philly to Brooklyn? I don't know. But if you play Syracuse, obviously the next night, I would anticipate, there'll be some crowd there. But I can't imagine there's a ton of folks from Austin or St. Joe's or even Texas Tech that would have made this trip. And I say a ton. Yeah, you may get, a couple of hundred, but I mean, in an NBA arena, so I say all that to lead up to, you're not real sure what the environment will be like. You don't know what your shooting background is going to look like. I mean, in some ways, it can kind of be like an NCAA tournament game. You got to manufacture your own energy. People are there rooting for an upset or something. I mean, you just don't know what you're going to get. So sometimes the shooting numbers are what, and then it's not called. They can let a little bit more go in these games, the way it's officiated, because you're dealing with random officials from wherever, and it's a doubleheader on both nights, so they're not wanting to be there all night, and they're not going to call it like a home game or even a typical road game, if you will, which means it's much like an NCAA tournament game. So we'll see what you get. This is still going to be a good win if you get it, and it certainly would be a good win for St. Joe's if they get it. But this would be you need to take care of business. And a point, Callan, I wanted to make too, just about these games for Texas Tech, just in general, is, your league it's been okay so far this season, but there's been some games that people have kind of looked at nationally going, the Big 12 not. I mean, I wrote off. I mean, like Pitt gets hammered West Virginia gets hammered by Pitt. LSU goes into Manhattan, Kansas, beats Kansas State. Auburn beats U of H at a neutral floor in Houston, so not really a true road game, but kind of. And that, I mean, Houston and Auburn may be the top team of the country as we sit right here, right now on this day. That's debatable. Michigan beat TCU. That game was in Ann Arbor. Wisconsin just hammered Arizona, and Arizona's in the top 10. I mean, if you're Arizona, you go up to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin, I think, shot 47 free throws. So note to the Texas Tech scheduler out there: don't play or go to Madison, Wisconsin. You're going to get homered. I mean, what is that? Baylor got thumped by Gonzaga, and then Gonzaga also thumped Arizona State. So again, you still have, I think, the best league in the country, but you take enough. You take on enough water here, and that reputation starts to take a hit, as do the numbers. And, you don't want old Captain SEC to be poking, more holes in your boat there, because they've already got 2 wins over you. So anyway, this is an A-10 team that was picked to finish 3rd in their league. So again, would be a good win. And Grant's not wrong when he says this could be the best or one of the best wins they get in the non-conference if they can get it. He's not wrong there if they go on to have the kind of year that people would think.
Yeah, that comment certainly stood out to me. But it kind of interesting to take a look at St. Joe's resume thus far, being 3-1, back-to-back results where you take a loss to Central Connecticut State and then you beat Villanova. So I don't know who else has got that combination. And Villanova is not, at their best as far as what Villanova typically is. So got to understand that context. But it kind of sounds like, back to kind of the matchup perspective, a lot of this is going to revolve around. First, today's episode brought to you by Skylight Frames. Do you struggle to find the perfect gift during the holidays? Maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it, wind up with something disappointing, or nothing at all. We've got the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family is going to love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in only seconds. So easy to use, and setup takes less than 60 seconds. And you can even add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. Only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame all the way across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. And the touchscreen is a game changer. You can swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, or even tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender. Plus, it looks great in any home. Photos are displayed in HD resolution, and you can choose from 5 different frame styles to set up in portrait or landscape. And the gift mode is amazing because you can preload it with memorable photos all without opening the box. Surprise them with old or new sentimental photos as soon as it's plugged in. Satisfaction is guaranteed. We're confident you're going to love Skylight, so confident that Skylight offers free 120-day returns. Skylight's a top-rated brand with over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and availability in over 30 countries. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, you're going to get $20 off when you purchase your Skylight frame at skylightframe.com/college. That's Skylight, SKYLIGHT, frame, FRAME.com/college, skylightframe.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase today at skylightframe.com/college. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet only $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and a whole lot more, all in one place. So when you get a hunch, a gut instinct in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a gut feeling again, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. But it kind of sounds like, back to kind of the matchup perspective, a lot of this is going to revolve around, some perimeter defense and some defense from some of your guards, maybe to really kind of set that tone. Maybe that's what it always is going to be for Coach McCasland. But if you're able to do that, maybe you kind of derail what St. Joe's is going to want to do offensively, and you can establish a bit of an edge and a margin and get a win. What do you think? Does it start there?
Yeah, so there's been some issues with what you've been able to do defensively. This is Grant McCasland saying this, and we've noticed it. It hasn't cost you or come close to costing you. However, this is different. This will be a real test, and you won't get bailed out by a call or whatever in a game like this. They've had a hard time keeping, I think, some guards out of the paint, and with their ball screen defense and with some of the rotations and the communication. And some of this is not having all of your pieces. Some of this is about not having some of your guys communicate well enough or whatever. But everybody's going to have to be elevated a bit really in the next 2 nights, because the simple mistakes will get you, there'll be a punishment for that against a team like this compared to, Pine Bluff and Wyoming and Bethune-Cookman and on it goes. I mean, they're just not good enough to ultimately hurt you. These 2 guards are. So if you and what did I tell you earlier about that? They're not looking to necessarily beat you from deep. They're looking to get into the lane, get to the free throw line, things like that, which means you better be good with your on-ball defense, some of your rotations and things like that. They've also got a kid named Rasheer Fleming that was a third-team preseason A-10 all-conference guy. He's a 13-8 guy, so he'll be their 6'9", 240 guy that's going to try to be the lob threat. He'll be a guy that tries to clean up the mess on the back end. So, that'll be an interesting matchup for a guy like JT Toppin. It'll be an interesting matchup for a guy like Mr. Fleming as well, trying to guard JT Toppin as well. But that's kind of what you look at is if you can keep these 2 kids out of the paint and maybe make them shoot it from deep, I would tend to like your chances. So,
Gotcha.
And this should be a game too where, because the other thing that Grant would tell you that he wants to see his team do better is on the glass. And so because Mr. Hawkins is back running your point, now you've got Elijah Hawkins and Christian Anderson now as your point guards back and all those things. You should get Federico back tonight. So we'll see there. But this allows Darion Williams to he's not having to facilitate, bring the ball up and all these things. He and Chance McMillan, who are really good rebounders for guards, because Hawkins and Anderson are now back, it allows them to go kind of focus on some of that aspect of the game, because you've got two of the better rebounding guards, certainly in the Big 12. And it's just one of those subtle things to where you got 6'2" and 6'5" or 6'6" down there pulling down, combining for, 8, 9, 10 boards a game total. That makes a difference. That creates second chance opportunities and all those things. And that's just something else that I would keep an eye on.
Don't you think there's got to be a higher than high rebounding expectation for this roster? Like, not only do we expect you to be competitive there, but I think you should be good, because we're talking about some of the outright size, but I mean, some of the guys that are on the perimeter too. I think of a guy like Chance McMillan. I mean, I remember some games last year where he was getting busy on the glass. He certainly got the athleticism to go in there and compete for some of those balls, and obviously Darion Williams and so on and so forth. Cambridge. I mean, whoever you want to name. I kind of feel like it's, even though we maybe hadn't seen it yet, it's justified to expect that this should be a really good rebounding team. Am I off there, or do you think you should have a much higher than average expectation of what they can do?
I still worry about when you go up against like the teams that just want to beat you up, that just want to get really physical with you, like the Houstons, we would have thought like how West Virginia would be when they just want to turn it into a street fight. I don't think I like your pieces necessarily in that setting on the glass. Generally speaking, though, I think that you should have some expectation to be either able to win or hang on the glass against most teams you play. Yes. And it's because of what you just said. The guy that will ultimately Toppin's going to get his. Darion Williams is going to get his. The guy that's going to kind of decide this is a guy that you kind of mentioned briefly a second ago, and he's going to be your margins guy. And we're going to say that about him a lot. If Devin Cambridge is really good for your team this year, you're going to be really good. If he's not what you need, or it is just a kind of a rotational piece that you're just like, hey man, whatever he gives us is great. That limits the ceiling on your basketball team in general, in my opinion, because he's going to get a chance to play, the wing, and certainly kind of play the 4 or the 5 at times. And he's got to do his part. I don't need Devin Cambridge to be a 3-point threat all the time. You can still, this is not what I'm talking about. He's kind of made some threes, and I would look at that part and go, whatever he gives you there is gravy. I don't think you're relying on him, but he's got to be able to defend and rebound, and be a guy that is a threat in transition on offense when you get out and run and all those things. And I think he's still feeling it out and getting back to what he was prior to the injury, but he's going to be the guy that ultimately dictates if you're a good rebounding team or just a so-so one.
Gotcha. Well, he also plays into this next question I wanted to ask you about, and that has to do with the Tech rotation. We've heard Coach McCasland talk about the depth and all the minutes that they've been able to spread around so far this season, which is obviously a good thing, but we all know when you get into tougher competition, things tighten up. And so I don't know that we're there just yet, but wondering maybe how much tighter the rotation might get even this weekend. Do you think we see something significantly different compared to what we've seen in the first 4 games? First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Testing your skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the best way to spice up any game, anytime. You think you got what it takes to win up to 100 times your money? All you got to do is select 2 to 6 players, pick more or less on their projected stats, place your entry, and boom, you're ready to roll. PrizePicks is not only the best way to get action on sports in most states, including Texas, but PrizePicks also puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When the picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. With easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories, it's no surprise that PrizePicks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So get in on the fun and the winning and download the PrizePicks app today and use our code LOCKEDONCollege, and you're going to get $50 instantly when you play only $5. Again, that's our code LOCKEDONCollege on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you just play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. With PrizePicks, run your game. But wondering maybe how much tighter the rotation might get even this weekend. Do you think we see something significantly different compared to what we've seen in the first 4 games? You think it continues to remain trending towards deep like we've seen? What do you expect?
So some of this is always going to be matchup based, and then the other caveat is foul trouble, which can kind of dictate this. Okay, so but to answer your question, I'm as curious as anybody. The 2 guys that I think I'm curious on like how many minutes they would go, and that's assuming this game is competitive. I mean, if you're getting blown out or you're blowing the other team out, then all bets are off. I'm interested to see how much he will lean on the freshman in this environment. How much is he going to trust Christian Anderson in this kind of game? I mean, is that 10 minutes? Is that 25 minutes like we saw in his first game? I don't know. I probably would guess it's closer to 10, but I just don't know. The other one is going to be Federico because, 1, how healthy is he? And then 2, sometimes, I mean, his limits have been somewhat limited. He's always going to be a kind of a rotational guy to where you're not going to ask him to do 25 plus on any given night, unless there's the matchup dictates it, or unless there's foul trouble that dictates it, or whatever. But those other 7 guys, I think that you'll see them play, all play 20 to 25 plus. Yes. So I don't know
that's kind of the dividing line. Like you've been running sort of 9-ish deep so far, and so you're wondering, all right, are we going to continue to see that many guys, or does it really shrink?
I think so.
6 men and maybe 1 more.
I think he wants to. I think big picture, if everybody's healthy, and again, we gave you kind of the this could change it, this could change it.
Yeah.
All things being equal, and when healthy, and again, it's important to note you're still working Elijah Hawkins and Christian Anderson back in to where they would be a full go. I don't know what percentage they would be at. I think that it's probably close to being a full go because they've both played the last 2 games, and you're just ramping that up. So I would say, but Federico, I don't know. But generally speaking, I think he wants to play 9 because he feels like you can outlast a team, and we're going to get the best out of guys when we can. I think the way he kind of phrased it, and we kind of relayed this on one of those telecasts a couple of games ago, I want to be able to substitute effort. And like when you see a guy in there for a 7-minute stretch and it's been fast paced and you can tell he's getting a little winded, I want to be able to take him out and put a guy in that's going to be able to pick up the baton, take it, and go, and generally be able to play hard throughout. And you can only do that if you go, deeper, because we saw it early in the season when you were only 7 deep and you're playing against teams that are just not very good. And your guys got tired and they start making mistakes. And these are good players of yours, but they, it's like, okay, when you're playing 35 plus, it's just hard. So I think that he wants to play 9, and for that reason.
I think it's really interesting. We wind up at this point, and it's not like this is some line in the schedule, but we've talked about this week, like, okay, you've transitioned from 4 straight at home to start the season against much lesser competition to something that obviously is on the road and could get a little serious as far as the competition this Thursday and Friday. So it's a little bit of a transition point. I just think it's interesting that by this time, I think Chance McMillan and Kevin Overton are your top 2 minutes guys so far this season. Now, some of that dictated, by guys that weren't on the floor for you, but that in and of itself, a good indication of how much things can change, because I'd be curious if anybody'd say, yeah, by the end of the year, it'll still be McMillan and Overton that are the top 2 minutes played guys. If they are, that probably means they're doing a lot of really good things. So fair enough, but it's been kind of interesting to see that progress as we began the year.
It won't stay that way. No. Because I would say Darion Williams and JT Toppin will have something to say about that
Right.
for sure.
And some of these comfortable wins impact guys like that in the minutes
absolutely.
category.
Yes.
And the last handful of games.
Correct. Yes.
Before we get out of here, Chris, take the opponent out of it entirely. Forget the matchup, what the other team does or doesn't do that you've got to account for and deal with. From a Red Raider focused perspective, we kind of touched on some perimeter defense. We touched on rebounding, but I'm wondering what else is on your list you really would like to see from Texas Tech and feel like maybe you need to see to be successful this weekend. Is there another focal point to really drill in on for the Red Raiders themselves in either game?
You want to see your guys shoot it well, obviously, but that can come and go. And I think I've already kind of, talked you through why it can be difficult to shoot the ball in some of these neutral site settings and things like that. So, but you have a good shooting team. I just think, generally speaking, defensively, that's where you're going to find out if you're any good or not. And I think when you get into some of these games, you're going against better coaches, you're going against better players. And you get schemed up. I mean, Syracuse, for example, that could be your opponent. On a Friday night, they're at the Barclays. I mean, they've been off for a week and a half, probably sitting back, studying, learning. Texas played over the weekend. And then obviously St. Joe's has been off for about a week too. So you're going to get teams that have had plenty of time to prepare for you, know what you want to do. And these are, and it's fun to play a back-to-back scenario because this is very similar to what you're going to get into in the conference tournament. You've got to be able to have a quick turnaround without much time to prepare. And you already know who potential opponents would be in the second game, but these are good environments for to put your kids in too, just because you find out a lot about your team when you get away. You let them see some different things. They may have, some of these kids may have never been to the New York, Brooklyn area or whatever, and see some of what's out there. And then you get to play in an NBA arena. This is what you're trying to get to, boys. You're going to play a game like this in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you were sitting there in Pittsburgh in an arena just like the Barclays, and it's unfamiliar to you, and you got to figure it out. And if you win that game, you would have a day to prepare. Then you didn't do it in Pittsburgh, but these are fun settings. I remember going with I was up there at the Barclays with Tech basketball, and it was in December, I think, and it was when Tubby was here, and I want to say we played University of Houston in one of those games, and I'm trying to remember who the other opponent was, but this is not the first time that they've. And the Barclays was fairly new at the time, and it was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. Because this is a massive arena, okay, a 17, 18,000 seat arena. It's on a square block. There is no parking lot around it because everybody either walks, subways, taxis, whatever you're doing. You're in the middle of New York. And we drive the bus into this thing, and you take the bus into this deal, and like they put you on this like little elevator, and this elevator thing like turns the whole bus around, so the bus doesn't have to turn around inside the arena. It just does it for you. And I'm like, well, this is some sorcery that I wasn't planning on seeing here. But I just remember in those games when I was up there, there wasn't a lot of people there. There just wasn't. And I think it's kind of it's a tricky deal. It's not a good thing to watch on TV in some of these preseason games because there's not a lot of juice on the building. I mean, I was watching, I guess it was Kansas and Michigan State the other day, and they were playing in Atlanta, and there's nobody in that building hardly. And it's just a flat atmosphere. But this is kind of normal. When they just give you all these games, there's a million things going on. And some of these games, as good as the teams may be, they're not in close proximity to where you're from. And it's just, it can lead to a low attendance number. So it can be for an interesting environment. And I'm sure these are all things that Grant is talking to his kids about leading up to this one. But it can be just like an NCAA tournament game, and that's the deal. Now, in Pittsburgh last year, you were in a sold-out, a venue in Pittsburgh. That's because Kentucky was there. and it was a hot ticket. There was a lot of, regional teams close by and all those things, and Big Blue Nation had showed up, but it won't be like that tonight at the Barclays for sure.
I'm curious, before we get out of here, a little Red Raider reflection. Seen some other Red Raiders discussing this. Are we going to pull for the Longhorns to win a game in order to facilitate something on Friday, or is this just horns down around the clock, hope they lose every one of them by 100? I don't care who we play on Friday. Have you considered this at all? Is this going to be one time where we're hoping Texas has more points at the end of a game so we can have a shot?
Yeah, the payoff there is that if you're rooting for Texas and you get them, it's great if you win. However, if you lose, it's like that would be that would really, really suck. It's like
could have done without that. Yeah,
exactly. So it's kind of the give and the take there. I hadn't thought about it that part much. I think you're getting a good game on paper no matter what. A lot of the cast of characters from that Texas team are gone from last year. I'm sure that would be good for the fans for sure. And so from that standpoint, I guess I do hope that that's the matchup that you get. But I mean, it's not like you're playing Syracuse. Now it's not Jim Boeheim on the sideline or anything like that. It's Adrian Autry who took over for Jim Boeheim after that long stint. Yeah. So who knows? I hadn't thought about that. I have not really followed. I mean, Texas lost to Ohio State on opening night. I think that was a neutral site game. They've not really played much since then. Syracuse, I think, is 3-0. They won 20 last year. So we'll see. But I guess it would make for a juicier matchup, sure, if you play them. But I also am like, again, call it PTSD. I'm like, God, if you lose that, that's going to suck. So anyways, yeah. So
I want to see it happen, but you're not going to get me to say that I'm rooting for the Longhorns.
I got you. Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge it. But yes, I would like to play them on Friday.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whatever logistically that requires.
I mean, it's not going to hurt my feelings if like Texas is the team that goes 0-2 in this deal.
No, so we can't lose possibly.
And they've got, I used to know everybody on that Texas staff, and then now they're all working at Ole Miss. But your strength coach, Darby Rich, who was for Mark Adams for those 2 years, he is now working at for Texas. So I do know somebody on that staff. Yeah. So anyway, I just hadn't thought about it much. I certainly get it. And you know what? If it makes for a better Friday night on TV and you can sink your teeth into that one, I just hope you win it and don't lose it.
You said there are a lot of guys in Oxford. I can't remember what happened. Did he have a really great season and was hired away by Ole Miss? Or I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. I can't remember why they're not in Austin anymore. Either way, Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. We're gonna get ready for some football as well before the week is done, as we're looking ahead to Red Raiders and Cowboys, but hoops centric for this conversation. So thanks for talking a little round ball, and we'll see you for the next one.
Absolutely. Enjoy the hoops tonight, folks, and keep hope alive. We'll talk to you next time.
For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.